Hello, everyone, and thank you once again for joining in, Dr. Judy, WTF. And tonight's episode is on trust. Very general word. I decided to go really general because I'm going to connect a lot of dots between a lot of subjects that we've been talking about, subjects such as betrayal, Ponzi schemes, subjects such as infidelity and cheating, and how parents build trust in their children, childhood wounds, and how we break trust in children, and just a lot of connect the dots on the word trust. And I want to start by defining the word. According to the Oxford Dictionary, trust is a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. So when we trust people who are benevolent to us, we feel that they have integrity, and when their actions match their words, then that's obviously the real hallmark, because anyone can say anything, but it's really the deeds that follow through that really make for the manifestation of trust and the connection that trust brings to relationships. And this is a call-in show, everybody. So please call in. And that number is, as you see on the bottom, but I will repeat to you in case you don't see it, 323-524-2599. And so I want to start with the mind map. And before I do all of that, I want to check in with everyone because this is a very trying time yet. I know that people are starting to open up. I see as I drive down Ventura Boulevard, because I'm in the Sherman Oaks area, I could see some stores beginning to open up, people still walking around with their masks, people still practicing social distancing, and calls that I've been receiving at the Psychological Healing Center, calls from mothers who are stressed out of their mind because they're homeschooling, or fathers who are stressed out of their mind because they're responsible for homeschooling their children. And this is just not an easy time. And speaking of trust, we just don't know who to trust because there's so much information and so many people who are giving us statistics and news reports and so on. And so that, of course, plays into who we trust, how trust is broken, and so on. So we're going to start with, back to the mind map, we're going to start with childhood wounds. And if you could look at panel number 1, which is labeled the wound, you will see all this light around it. And the light around it is an infant's ability to soak in the world. And we need to have permeable membranes, permeable boundaries in order to take in the love, the breast milk, the sights and sounds and smells of the world, the taste of the world. We need a permeable boundary in order for everything to come through and incorporate into the fiber of our being. So that membrane is permeable. However, if that membrane is violated, as in childhood wounds, not good things start to encode into the fiber of a child's being, primarily beginning with nonverbal, pre-verbal messages. And we'll get to those in a little while. But I want to describe the 5 childhood wounds that break trust. So trust is going to be spoken of in a developmental model way because we build it from birth on up, and then we later manifest it in relationships, or we pick relationships that are lacking in trust, and then we break down into panels 4, 5, 6. So obviously, if you want to sustain a relationship, either with your children, with your spouse, with your sister, brother, mother, father, friend, coworker, boss, anybody, it has to be built on a foundation of trust. So the black dots in panel one represent all of the shadows that violate that permeable boundary. And once again, those black dots represent what I call childhood wounds, namely the five that we concentrate on at the Psychological Healing Center include physical abuse, emotional, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, emotional and physical, and smothering, controlling, manipulating, and so on. And so those are the wounds. And so primarily we are wired to be open. We want to trust the world. And how does that foundationally get going? Well, John Bowlby, Dr. John Bowlby, who I refer to a lot, attachment theorist, primarily he described secure attachment in an infant, which is the building block of trust. And what is secure attachment? And the building of trust is that when you and your baby are attuned to each other, you and your family are attuned to each other, and there's plenty of eye contact with that baby and responsiveness. And ideally, if your baby is lucky enough to be breastfed by mom and attuned to by mom and nurtured by mom and supported by dad and supported by grandparents and extended family, well, that's how we build a foundation of trust. So a lot of theoreticians, a lot of psychologists have referred to different stages of development, and Erik Erikson described the first challenge, the first stage of development as trust versus mistrust. So it can go two ways. Mistrust is going to form insecure attachment. And how does that happen? Well, again, back to John Bowlby and his way of describing how secure attachment is formed. When your primary caregiver is there for you, when they nurture you, when they feed you when you're hungry, when they read your cries and know how to interpret your cries, whether you're crying because you're hungry or tired or too cold or you wet your pants, these are ways that trust is built. Now, trust is not a cognitive word that an infant or baby can understand, but they can feel it. And they could feel that there's a sense of security, and then there's a sense of knowing what's coming next. And after a while, the baby develops what is called object constancy. And object constancy is the ability of the baby to hold in his or her emotional world the idea that the world is somewhat consistent. So over time, baby learns that if mother doesn't come immediately, then eventually she can trust that mom will be there pretty soon. And this, again, is a developmental phase because at first we have to attend to the baby's needs rapidly. We have to attune to them, and we can't leave much gap between their needs and fulfilling on them, because then they will dysregulate emotionally, and they will develop anxiety, and they will develop somatic reactions to the wound, and they will build a world where they don't feel that they can really lean and depend on you, and therefore have a sense of security and inner consistency, which is that object constancy. And many of the videos that I have created and have uploaded to YouTube involve emotional dysregulation, as in the case of people who are not able to manage their anxiety, manage their depression, manage loss, manage things that life throws at us. And then they're usually falling in the category of the borderline personality disorders, people who are very, very prone to being triggered by abandonment. And then there is the other spectrum of the people who are more shelled off, and they would be on more of the narcissistic end of the spectrum. And in both cases, trust has been broken. In the case of the borderline, trust has been broken in the form of mom is not really consistent, not really available. Mom is busy and distracted with her own inner world and cannot have emotional bandwidth for the inner world of the child. In the case of narcissism, usually the parents are so um, attuned to themselves and they put themselves before the need of the child that there's a trust broken on another level, and leaving the child feeling that they, at the end of the day, are not really all that important, or on the other hand, so important that they feel overinflated and then feel very, very vulnerable to having their false sense of self cracked or exposed or shamed. So you can see that everything is kind of, if you look at the mind map, it all clicks together like a puzzle. So childhood wounds create reactions to the wound that then builds an encoding of a sense of self. And that encoding includes perception of self and the world. So if we don't have this consistency, if we don't have a securely attached, well-developed ability to hold in our mind the idea that mom is coming back, that dad is coming back, that the world is pretty much of a safe place, it cracks our lens of perception, and therefore it cracks our lens of the sense of trust. And then we encode into the panel 3 something like worldview might be the world is not a safe place. I cannot trust people. I will be betrayed. If I get close to people, then I will be abandoned. So you could see how all the nonverbal messages that are conveyed to the child are then encoded into the eventual cognitive verbal messages that then form a sense of a view of self and a view of the world. And this is a call-in show, everyone. So please do call in 323-524-2599. So let's bring the relevancy of what's happening in our world of COVID-19 and all the information coming at us and all the people that we have to interface with, whether it be the person at the grocery store or the client that we have to see at a social distance, or touching. Even today, I was at the dog park with my dogs, and I wasn't really sure about the metal fence and touching the metal fence. So in this particular time, you could see how trust is very, very low. And we have mechanisms to help ourselves in these more trying times and mitigate the damages of not being able to trust, because of course we don't want to get sick. So we mitigate it by having towels that are soaked in alcohol-based liquids. We wash our hands frequently. We wear masks. We social distance. And so these are all very reasonable ways of protecting ourselves right now, because it's important that our boundaries are tighter and that we do shut down. What does kind of go out the window in this atmosphere is the idea of the feeling of human connection. Although it's really, really nice to connect with my patients via Skype, and it's really, really nice to connect to my family via Skype and Zoom and phone. There's nothing that will substitute for being there and getting a hug from people and seeing them face to face. And that's just how we're wired. We're wired to connect. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear how you're doing. I know that a lot of you out there are not doing so well, and hopefully you're able to have a support system and doctors that you trust to care for you. And hello, you are on the couch. Thank you so much for calling in. And who is this, please?
Hi, this is Tina. Hi, Dr. Judy. How are you?
Hi, Tina. How you doing? Have we spoken before?
No, I've been in touch via email, and it's a bit of a long conversation, but I couldn't believe your topic was on trust. Um, oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Where are you calling from, Tina? What part of the world?
I'm from Massachusetts.
Okay, and how and why did this resonate? You said you can't believe I'm doing this subject on trust. So when you saw it pop up, what were you thinking?
So, I know everyone always says this, but out of all the work, your work has very much helped me. I am the target of 3 narcissists, and it actually affected my health.
Okay.
I have endometriosis, and so I want to kind of keep this short. It's a long story, and I have reached out to work with you further, but it's touching my heart because now I have other people reaching out to me. So I want to keep this very, let's say, in the right manner. I found a program, a holistic program. It did work. It put my endometriosis into remission. However, it was from all the releasing of cortisol, and the person that's in charge of this program helped me, knowing this whole story that I was being smeared while bedridden by the 3 narcissists in my life.
Mhm.
And then coming to find out, she is not an empath. She's doing it to make money more, and she's preying on what she calls hearts on legs. And now I don't know what to do. I have girls reaching out to me because it did work with the protocols for my health, and it helped me learn the mindset of a codependent and how to be my own parent, my
Okay.
own best friend. But you were talking about trust.
Mhm.
I feel like if I don't say anything, these girls are at risk, but it's also, I feel like an old codependency thing where I instantly want to help, but with this is a mentally ill woman or possibly sociopathic, that it's it's confusing me what I should do because
Okay.
it's like
So
nicking at me.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear. So the person that you lost trust in is the person that was providing you health care. Is that correct?
Yes, I did a pilot program. I just want to be careful with what I say, just in case. And the people in the program happened to be actually survivors of narcissistic abuse and an entrepreneur artist, and we were scammed. The program she was triggered by the person she was doing the pilot program in. We never got our $500 back, nor the point of the whole program. Again, I don't want to go too into detail because I
Yeah.
have been a target of a sociopath before, so I know what they're capable of. But where this is so serious, because women that are going to her are easy to be brainwashed, and um, there's just so much at risk. And then she's asking them for more money to train, but it's not. It's just all a very. It's very openly obvious to me that it is. Um, yeah, I don't know if it's borderline because I was in such estrogen dominance from so much abuse in the IUD that I was like in shock, and anyone that would listen to me and then putting the nutrients in. And then I just found out most of it was copied from 2 others, and there's all these corruption, but it's like, do I let it go? Because,
These are
I'm healed, but then these,
very, very
I'm
difficult.
sorry.
No, I'm just kind
Yes.
of looking at what you're faced with because on some level, if you're a whistleblower, what's the downside?
I will go through well, the I don't want to sound selfish, but the torture of hacked accounts and whatever they're capable of doing, and my body gets very physically sick from, evil or whatever, the bad energies. But the thing is, Dr. Judy, all these women look up to me because of my strength, and I can talk. I'm Italiano, and I'm not shy as much as I'm empath and highly sensitive, and I've done my work. They're reaching out to me. Some I don't say anything. I'm being their friend. There's only a few, so I'm not like going out of my way. But
Yeah.
again, I know this is could be talked about, and I did reach out. I just don't know if I should for now the shock of her betraying me. She did the same exact thing that the 3 people did when I was crying out for help for 3 years. I didn't know what was wrong with the IUD had caused my body, and it had stunted my progesterone.
Okay,
so she did this. She just ghosted me and didn't give me my money.
Okay, so one of the most horrible violations is when a professional that has a license and people are in pain and they come to that professional and they're
well, that's questionable now.
Right. Okay, so
yes.
Dial it back, because the point is, how did you get yourself hooked up with such a character and 3 narcissists? So you know how I think. I always dial it back.
Okay.
And there's a and people who are vulnerable have been groomed to be vulnerable. Okay, groomed to be vulnerable.
Yes.
So tell me about your panel 1 wounds. Were you abused? Were you neglected? Were you smothered? Were you? What happened?
I am the middle child, scapegoat. My parents are fake born-again Christian, narcissistic. I am the target of a single white female narcissistic ex-best friend and a guy friend that was a sociopath. So 5 years ago, when I fell bedridden, is when I realized and started to face my mistakes, because I'm not perfect by any means, and everything started to make sense. But they were smearing me. They waited. I got my broker license, so I didn't know that made my mother furious because it outshined her. I didn't know that because I looked like my father. So I kind of had intuition. I didn't know it existed. I'm a kind person, again, not perfect, and I didn't have to people please for people to like me. I had friends all walks of life, but it did me harm because I didn't judge. However, then the Facebook era starts. I'm the one without the kid. People didn't believe endometriosis was real. And then I get this opportunity with my personality, with my local insurance, get the job. I kind of stepped away. My endo was getting worse, and my friends were not being supportive. And that's when I was with getting closer with the sociopath. And they literally waited till I was bedridden to really start erasing my existence.
Okay, so
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just want to kind of break it down. So endometriosis is endometrial tissue from the uterus creeps up into the fallopian tubes, and when a woman menstruates, that tissue starts to bleed in bad spots.
It grows outside the uterus. Yes.
Outside the uterus, and then causes immense pain, especially during menstruation. So with that said, we also know that the mind and the body are interconnected. We also know, as Dr. Bessel van der Kolk talks about, the body keeps the score. So yes, there's all this chaos as you go on and on and on. I'm already in panel 4 with you. And then this happened and this one. But I want people to understand how this system gone wrong got set up. And when we put words to people like, oh, this is a narcissist, this is a sociopath, and I'm the scapegoat, I also want to define it from the point of view of my thinking, the mind map. Narcissism is, when we have a narcissistic defense around us, it creates a hardened heart. So there's no ability for empathy. And I talk about this on many shows. I talked about it, I think, recently on narcissism as a defense mechanism, a projection.
Yes.
And maybe some of you have watched that. The point being is
Excuse me, Dr. Judy, are you saying that we harden our hearts as magnets to them, or being raised by them, or that's what they're doing? Because I'm still learning your mind map.
Yeah. So who's hardened their heart is the person who lacks empathy. The person.
Oh, okay. I was like, I wish I could be mean.
Okay. Sociopath. I've been watching that Jeffrey Epstein episode, the child abuser who finally went to jail, and it's on Netflix thing. I should shrink.
Yes.
Anyway, why was he able to rape and take advantage of so many young women? Is because he really didn't care. They were objects to him, and he used them literally like toilet paper, okay, if you will. And that's the problem, is when we lack empathy, anything goes. So if a person lacks empathy and they hurt you, well, they're not hurting, so they don't care that you are. As a matter of fact, in the cases that I've seen, sometimes it's the case that the more you're hurting, the better they feel, because they're projecting that pain onto you. So going back to the theme of trust, when our primary caregivers, who are supposed to be the top of the line people to trust, because we have no choice. Parents set the bar.
Can I let you know, I was reaching out for support. They would not believe me. I couldn't. That's when I realized, and I want other listeners, because I was not listening to what I was studying and to other, I was a hair away from cancer before I started to do the holistic and be able to heal, because I did not want to believe that all these people that I loved and trusted were capable of doing what they were doing. A hair away from several at 35 years old. And I wish I could make cliff notes, because again, I still have healing to go, but it's just, it feels like, how do we have a radar, really? I mean, this woman fooled me, helped me for the very thing she ends up doing.
So look, you said it very succinctly. You said, I can't believe that these people did this to me. So the first people that did this to you, if your assessment is on target with about your parents and being a scapegoat and having a dysfunctional narcissistic mother and other dynamics in your life, is kind of like you being groomed to tolerate that.
Well, I guess I'm asking Dr. Judy, when I asked for help, when I asked for them to just sit with me or take me to the doctors, instead they saw it like vultures. And it's odd, because they all did the same patterns with the group and the family, and that was making me release cortisol. So I didn't have a clue up until then I'm not trying to deny anything. I like I said, I favor you, but it was not playing the victim. I literally was sick, and instead of believing me, they used it as now they have it as a permanent. I've been ostracized and shunned, socially mobbed on Facebook. So, but that's where I'm saying, that's why I'm calling, because the very woman that helped me heal this is the one that now showed her true colors, and now could potentially harm a lot. And so I don't know, do I let it play out?
I think if it's going to be a legal thing, I'm always big on acts of, don't be an act of omission. In other words, if you're not standing in the way of somebody else is being harmed, it's not a good thing.
And don't try to get my $500 back. Just let it be the lesson that to be careful who I trust from now on.
Yeah, and also get yourself some legal advice here, because I don't want you. Here's the thing: is I don't want you to be in harm's way when you help other people. That's not fair. So find a way, somebody that can guide you through this legally, perhaps, where you could work people and step out of the way and let a higher level of care step in, because they are obligated, they are committed to their HIPAA policies and their what's that, Hippocratic oath is what
I know I can never say, but can you've just helped me, because the few that have reached out to me, I have not said anything because they're at a vulnerable, they're in pain state, but just being a friend. But I have reached out to you and made a session, so I'm just glad, because I almost wanted to do a review, and then your episode came up, because I did. She saved my life. I wish this wasn't true, but it just goes to show you just never know.
Okay, I want to shine a truth light on just what you said here, and I'm glad we're going to do a session. You signed up for one of my sessions, yes?
Yes, I did, and yes, because I've reached out to 40 therapists, and none of them either are taking my insurance or have a clue how to help.
So look, just so that we get to the point and the audience understands,
yes.
of the
Sorry.
that's okay. The whole theme of trust is that when our parents break trust, because see, the same thing happened. It's yin and yang. Your parents did feed you, they did save your life because they didn't throw you to the wolves, right? So that's good. You survived the
Yeah,
extra,
I was overspoiled.
right? And then, and on the other hand, they did hurt you and they harmed you. And the same dynamic is coming up here. There's a yin and a yang. The practitioner did help you, but then also the practitioner did harm you. So that's why I'm saying that you were groomed. So that where the trust comes in is that you trusted that something good was going to happen, and people who are vulnerable to narcissistic abuse and people who are going to take them for a ride, whether it be take their money or take their self-esteem or something, are the people who have um, they're more of the people pleaser types. They're more of the people who are toxically bonded to their family of origin, and they'll do anything. Okay, they're more the trusting souls, and so they'll sign up because that's what they've been used to doing. And so this is kind of like trust gone wrong. Okay,
Yes.
you
And at the same time, being ostracized was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I've been completely ostracized because I was not absorbing any more energies, wasn't being asked. That's so I could focus on myself to heal. That was just a side note I wanted to share for any listeners, because
really
I really was able to focus.
Okay, so it reminds me. I love the metaphors of fairy tales. Of course, I use the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy, and Toto pulling the truth curtain on the whole scam of the Land of Oz and everything. And I'm thinking about the theme "trust gone wrong," and I'm thinking about Snow White. Remember Snow White and the Wicked Witch, and she gives the little girl the apple, and the apple is nutritious. It's nice and red and juicy and so forth. It's just that there's poison in the apple, right? And so a lot of times when we're set up and we're groomed, something good is in it, and then something horrible is in it. So you get the good with the bad, and that's the trust, the betrayal, the trust gone wrong, the Ponzi schemes where they set people up to say, oh, this is a great deal if you invest with me. And usually the schemers are people that the person trusts.
And it was working. Yeah. That's the thing. And
right? But
can I just say, sorry, go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, ask your question.
Well, the thing is, I know I'm a little nervous because I know I'm on the air, but I didn't trigger because there was other, people, and it actually was something I think I needed. This is what was the point, is that I still, even after all this work and how much I've healed my body and mind, I still have work to go, because she was portraying herself as an empath, preying on us, but we picked up on it. Okay. And I still wasn't trusting me. It's almost like I needed it. But however, what I guess I'm asking you is answered, is that just take it a step back and then wait till I talk to a therapist or legal advice, because I can't worry about the others that harm.
Here's what we're going to do about it for now. I know you have a session with me, so we'll go through it carefully and bring in all the elements of higher level of care that you need, including legal. Okay, but for right now, I want the audience to understand that when we're starting as infants, we're like Snow White. We're pure. We're Snow White, taking either the delicious apple that's full of vitamins and yummy and wholesome, or unfortunately, we might end up with the bad apple parent who injects that apple with their own selfish desires and needs, and then you bite into it, and I call it the psychovirus. You get poisoned, okay? So I'm going to go on because I want to give other people an opportunity.
Okay, no, thank you. You just, I write what the Snow White and my mother is perfect. So thank you, and I'll be in touch for the appointment. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for calling in. Okay.
Okay, you're great. Thanks. Have a great night.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I think that one of the things that I wanted to create when I created the mind map, which was actually meant for healing global disconnect and ended up being my psychotherapeutic model, is that I, like everyone else, like you, I'm human. So I have my good days, my bad days. I have areas where I too get triggered, believe it or not, and all kinds of human frailties. And so I wanted to develop a system that people can trust. So they don't necessarily have to say, oh, I trust you, Dr. Judy, because, hopefully I'm trustworthy, meaning that I behave ethically and so on. But I wanted them to be able to trust a system so that even if the therapist has an off day or doesn't catch something, the mind map system will catch it because we're really connecting the dots between what happened, how things got encoded, how things got broken down into chaos defenses and further breakdowns, and how to morph out of all that mess. So how the heck do we rebuild trust? That's a tough one because fear is one of the hardest emotions to extinguish. So I love dogs. I trust dogs. But on the other hand, I do have a beautiful female German Shepherd. I'm in love with her, and she's really, really protective. And so I don't 100% trust her in the sense that I know that she's so protective that she might go overboard. So I have to put in some mechanisms whereby people are safe when they come up to the house. So, number one, I have to get training for her. I have to be on top of her. I have to make sure the gates are locked when service people are coming to the house, and so on and so forth. And so sometimes we have to put in checks and balances to make sure that trust is, that people can, we can uphold the trust and the safety. And same thing with your family of origin. If they've broken these barriers, if they've abused and neglected you and smothered and controlled you, well, trust is therefore broken. And sometimes you cannot repair this trust. And a lot of times people will call me, especially in marital situations, and they're making a last ditched effort to repair a lot of broken trust. And this is where I do trust the mind map, because my philosophy is don't dump the person, dump the problem. But if the two people are not willing to process and own their own stuff and dial it back to all the emotional pain of childhood, there may never be a bridge to bring it together again. So you see how delicate this thing is? I think I have a caller. Is that right? Hello? You're on the couch.
Hello.
Hi, and what's your name?
Hi. Bailey.
Haley, thank you so much for calling in. And where are you calling from?
Victoria, BC, Canada.
Your favorite country. I'm a Canadian. Actually, they had me turn in my citizenship. I'm so angry at myself, but I was only 17, and I wish I retained my dual citizenship. I've been to Victoria. It's so gorgeous up there. And so I'd like to know how you relate to the topic of trust.
How I relate to it. I've always struggled with trust a lot because I have been in several abusive relationships, and a lot has happened throughout it, whether that be betrayal, trauma, cheating, domestic violence, that type of thing. And I was in a narcissistic relationship for 5 years, and I left 2 years ago, and I did a lot of work. I've been in several different types of trauma counseling and done a lot of healing. And I was able to manifest a healthy relationship, the healthiest I've been in my life. And I'm not, I guess where I'm at now is that I'm going through a breakup with this person currently, and I'm feeling a lot of shock because I can't quite put my finger on what happened, whether or not it was, spending too much time in isolation, or they're dealing with their own trauma, or I don't know, just I'm not sure. But I just noticed kind of like a 360 with them, and that has broken my trust again, because they started showing, some similarities to my last relationship, like the stonewalling, avoidance, shutdown, and that's really bringing up a lot of my attachment wounds. My dad was emotionally unavailable. My mom was really sick when I was younger and wasn't able to attune to me. And so it's basically kind of the basics. And I just kind of want to say that I think it's important to note that, like, after my relationship with my narcissistic ex, that I became really more avoidant and shut down, and the person I attracted was actually very similar to how I have always been in my life, very anxious, preoccupied, codependent, ACA. And so it kind of did a flip, and now I flipped back and, very obsessive, chasing, and he did the opposite, and now he's very cold. And so I'm very confused by these kind of like this dance that I'm going in my life. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, it sounds like you really have been acquiring a lot of information, about attachment theory and the dance of dysfunction and all that. Have you been listening to a lot of YouTube episodes and learning about all of this?
I'm a social worker, so it's probably part of it.
Okay, so okay, so first of all,
and I've done a lot of healing. Like, I've been in EMDR, and I've done a lot of healing work too. So I think that's why it's hitting me. Like, I've done so much work. Like, why is this still happening?
Right. Well, first of all, this particular time we're going through is not the best time for fostering intimacy, obviously. And more than any time, all of our emotional triggers are going to be at the surface, because our bandwidth is really short and we don't have all of the usual outlets available, like, I don't know, going to exercise classes, or just socializing with people, going to the movies, going out to a restaurant, whatever people do. And so they're in a steam pressure cooker situation. So if the person is salvageable, and if you can, maybe hold off on the breakup if it's just so obvious and evident that it's not going to go anywhere. I get it. But why do we do the what the Freud over and over again? And it's always the same answer, is that we are trying. It's not like we're crazy or stupid. We want to redeem ourselves, and we want to go through the broken record for the happy ending. So in other words, if we've been abandoned, or had parents that neglected us and abused us, and groomed us for abuse, and then we end up in those relationships, somehow we still want that force of neglect to turn around, make 180 degrees, and own their own stuff and transform. And this happens to the most intelligent, even people who have, and I spoke about this in at least once or twice in my episodes on covert narcissism, PhD and all. Boy, did I take it hook, line, and sinker. Geez, okay. But there I was, and trusting, and so on. And because I call it I want to talk about this concept again. It's called positive projection. So for example, if I don't think that, if I know that I won't take money out of somebody's purse if they leave the purse on my table, I assume that other people wouldn't do that either. I just assume it. And that's called positive projection. So I'll give people the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes I have been, quote, guilty of giving too much benefit on too much doubt. So this is the kind of thing that people have to watch for, who are more vulnerable, trusting, empathic. So it's this positive projection. So in terms of trust, we don't want to over trust and positively project. We don't want to live in paranoid land and under trust. So the best stance I could think of is park yourself in neutral, because trust has to be earned. Okay, so you don't have to project on somebody that they're horrible. You don't have to project on somebody that they're so trustworthy or great. You just get to know people. And some people are very, very good at fooling us, and right? And that's how we fall down. But every time we fall down, hopefully we get a little smarter, we develop a little bit more wisdom, we learn how to deal with our boundaries, and we set our boundaries to semi-permeable most of the time and non-permeable some of the time when we're in the face of people who are not not kind, empathic, trustworthy, ethical, and so on, and then open more to people who have proven themselves to have a higher ethical standard, higher levels of empathy, and so on. And there are clues and cues from people all over the place. And I'm sure you've seen this over and over, and you've seen it in your work. People who are tending towards sociopathy and people who are on more of the narcissistic end of the spectrum, they don't show a lot of empathy. And being around them is also something of a somatic experience. If you observe your body, you'll know that you're being sucked dry. Okay? And sometimes being in these kinds of relationships really tire us out and give us backaches or headaches or stomach aches or any kind of aches. So be very, very tuned in to what your body is saying. And then there's a whole nother world of nonverbal cues. Sometimes people who are not authentic won't look us in the eyes. People who are not on the same page may promise more than they can deliver. People who are trying to manipulate may do something like love bomb us, okay, so that we're, people who are starving for attention and love. Wow, that guy bought me flowers and he's taken me on a trip and so on and so forth. And then once you're nice and hooked in the situation, then they start withdrawing the love and start giving you crumbs. But by then,
I guess I'm not sure if that's possibly what happened or not. I think that's why I'm really confused, because I was determined to not have a relationship again. I was determined to not give trust, and I put this huge wall up, and then I kept getting the message from this person: I want a life with you. I'll show you the world's a safe place. I understand you've been hurt, and let me in and let me show you that everything's going to be okay. And I was like, no, the world is not a safe place, and I'm not going to let you in. And slowly over time, he broke down my walls, and he showed me that he was a trustworthy person. He was available, and he was kind, and he was safe and loving. And I really saw those cues, and it wasn't just in my imagination. Like, other people really saw that. My mom, my dad, my friends, and I have a program around me to and counseling and all that. And then just 2 years later, just snapped and changed 360. And I'm thinking, I don't understand how that is possible to just happen, which really sounds like love bombing and discard to me. But at the same time, I just don't, I can't imagine this person being narcissistic, and I don't know, because I dated a narcissist and they're nothing like each other. So I guess I'm lost. And the words that I'm getting from this person is, I'm shut down, I'm numb, I want to be in a relationship, so I think it's salvageable. But this person says to me, get it through your head, we can't be in a relationship, leave me alone, I'm numb, I can't provide you what you want, I'm not good enough, leave me alone, those types of things. So I have no energy left, I'm just going to hide away. And to me, that sounds like trauma. But I don't know.
Person is saying to you that they're numb, get away, I can't provide you with, is that what they're saying to you?
they say I'm shut down, I'm numb, I have nothing left, I have no energy, and you need to just
They
walk
don't have
away. I have
energy.
nothing left to give.
Wait, so hold on a minute. Is it that you don't have energy to give, or they don't?
No, that's what they say. They have done a complete 360, and they used to give, like, they're codependent. They give me everything. Like, I'll make food for you. I want to get married to you. I'll do everything for you. Anything you ever want. I'll never hurt you. And then 360, like, I have no energy left. I'm going to numb out. Like, lost her job, hiding away on an island. Like, don't want anything to do with me. No contact with anybody, really. No, not even just me. Like, nobody. And just, they're just hiding.
Oh, look,
Like, get it through your head. I don't ever want to be with you. Go away.
so as a clinician, and even people who are not clinicians, I want you guys to think like a shrink. And although there are no guarantees, and sometimes these things don't reveal themselves till much later, it's not only not a bad idea, it's a very, very good idea to understand the childhood wounds of people that you get very, very close to. And sometimes there it is that they've been so wounded by parents who made them feel unimportant, or made them feel stupid, or whatever is going on and is triggering. So what is a healthy relationship? To me, it's when you're able to own your own stuff, do your own work, and you're with a partner who's willing to do the same, and that they're not resorting to defense mechanisms like pushing you away, or going to an island, or completely emotionally shutting down, or the other side of the coin, love bombing, and presenting that way. So anything that does seem out of balance probably is. And so I think that the more work we do on ourselves, and the more we're able to go there, panel one, childhood wounds, and own own our own projections, own what kinds of core beliefs we've incorporated into the fiber of our being, understand what kind of defense mechanisms we erect. Because remember, it's a system gone wrong. So the dance is that you're doing your part, and then that person is doing the counterpart, and you're never really ending up in synergy, which is panel number 7. So you never get to the light of the relationship. It's never like the picture showing 1 + 1 is greater than 2, because in order for that to even happen, people have to have some semblance of trust in themselves and the world. Without that over rose-colored glasses view of the positive projection. So it's always this work in progress. It's not that easy, as you can see, and people fall into the trap all the time. And the best we can do is have pattern recognition, and be able to dial it back to the inception and the blueprint, and see what patterns we're following and what defenses we're erecting, and then study ourselves so that we don't bring to the table our own psychopathology, okay? And then hopefully we don't attract that from another person. So I know we're almost out of time. I really appreciate you calling in, and this can get very
Okay, yeah.
and convoluted, and oh my God, how did I, I'm an intelligent woman, therapist, how did I get into it? So just take a step back, and I have that video. It's really a great deal for the $97 video, where you get a life coach along with about 7 or 8 hours of mind mapping by me, okay, standing there just dissecting panels 1 through 9, and going through peaceful healing dialogue. And for parents out there, I have my grandson breaking down the mind map from a child's point of view. So it's just a lot of stuff there. And then for people who are really, really down the rabbit hole of narcissistic abuse, and just sick and just in pain over that, we came out with a video series called The Mind Map Journey to Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. And it's hosted by my life coach, Yitz Epstein, and it is now available. So please do use our tools. This mind map has radically transformed, paradigm shifted the way that I work, because I target the cause, and it's just a system that really anybody can learn, and then they can apply, and as a point of prevention also. Okay, and if you want to reach out further, just reach out to me or one of the team members. And the point is to get EQ, emotional intelligence, so that we can prevent the WTF. Okay? So I really appreciate you calling from Victoria, and we're here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to...
Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. I'm going to go to a requested Shrink That tune, a request by one of my favorite caller inners, Robert. Thank you very much. I'm not sure if this is the song you had in mind, but the song is by Madonna, one of my favorite artists, and it's called Extreme Accident Lyrics, and it goes like this. I went to the far right, then I went to the far left. I tried to recover my center of gravity. So again, we're talking about trust. So you can't go too far right and positively project. You can't go too far left and live in a paranoia. This song is, she's trying to find the central point, maybe a neutral stance. I guess I'm lost. I had to pay the cost. The thing that hurt me most was that I wasn't lost. So I'm not sure what she means by I wasn't lost, but maybe she had an inner knowing, and that she at the core of her knew what was going on, but then she kept being unstabilized. I came from the Midwest, then I went to the Far East. I tried to discover my own identity. So this is a person that, in terms of attachment theory, I don't see the secure attachment. Not that we don't all try to discover our own identity, but if at a certain point we're still kind of doing the Freud and, goes on, then I guess we've got to dial it back and go to the inception point. I guess I'm lost. I paid the handsome cost. The thing that hurt me most was that I wasn't lost. I wasn't lost. No, I wasn't lost. It was a different feeling, a mix of lucidity and craziness. So there it is. She has a sense of what's up, a lucidity, and then the craziness, the cracked lens of perception, as I like to call it. I was right, and I got the right to choose my own life, like a full circle. So I think she had to go in all kinds of directions to find that central point, and circle back to life and circle back to her core, where she maybe didn't feel so lost. I guess I'm lost. I had to pay the cost. The thing that hurt me most was that I wasn't lost. I wasn't lost. So maybe that was her wake up, that she had the answers within, that she wasn't lost, but then she was swayed to the left and swayed to the right until she had to build a kind of a sense of trust in herself. And that's where she found her central point. So with that said, I know we're going through a lot and we don't know who to listen to. So I think the best that we could not go too far left by projecting a lot of bad on people, or too far right and projecting a lot of good on people. We want to stay very semi-permeable and be able to use good judgment and think clearly without a sense of this kind of a distortion going on. So I will see you next week, and please feel free to call in. We offer 15-minute consultations. We're happy to talk to people, and thank clinic. Good night, everybody.